When it comes to technology, are you fed up with hype and buzzwords? If you're looking for a tech podcast where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses, reshaping entire industries, and even our world, you've come to the right place. And after recently learning about a company called Justdiggit, which is a non-profit organisation, and how it's working on regreening, thereby restoring degraded land across Africa using technology, I felt compelled to find out more, because greener land means more CO2 capture and ultimately a cooler planet. So what is the role of technology in that? Well, Justdiggit is on a mission to regreen Africa in the next 10 years, but they admit they can't do it on their own, so they're harnessing the growth and penetration of mobile technology in Africa to create an app to educate local farmers on a large scale about regreening, because it gives local farmers the tools and instructions that they need to restore their own land without physical presence on the ground. And once fully developed, the regreening app will make everyone with a mobile phone an ambassador of regreening and support Justdiggit on their journey to reach 350 million farmers by 2030. And this is not a company telling people what to do. This is empowering farmers to take action and whatever they think is best to look after their land. And so far, I think they've dug something like 200,000 water bunds, brought back 9.7 million trees, and have 300,000 hectares of land under regreening. It's an absolutely inspirational story, so please buckle up and hold on tight, because today I'm going to beam your ears all the way to the Netherlands, where Sander de Haas from Justdiggit is going to share the story behind the company and how they are aiming to improve the world with technology. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Neil. So my name is Sander de Haas. Sander is short for Alexander. I'm 41 years old. I have a background in civil engineering and hydrogeology. And I'm the Chief Technical Officer and a regreening expert at Justdiggit. And Justdiggit is an international non-profit. We're working on landscape restoration in Africa. So actually, we're trying to make dry areas green again. And we show that using simple techniques that these areas can be restored. And restoring, or as we call it, regreening them, has a huge positive impact on people, on the environment, and on climate. So as Justdiggit, our headquarters are in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. I live in the Netherlands too, with my girlfriend and 2 small kids. And we have teams working in the UK and in Germany to raise awareness on this topic and to do fundraising. And we have a team of colleagues on the ground in the countries where we do the actual regreening work in Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Togo, Ethiopia, and Madagascar. So for myself, I started about 8 years ago at Justdiggit. And back when I started, we were a team of only 4. And I did all the technical aspects of our work. So from site selection, where can we do what type of work to regreen an area, to monitoring our impact. And now we've grown quite a bit, especially in the last few years. So currently we have almost 50 staff, and I'm leading our technical team, still working on the regreening. So still involved in the practical aspects, such as site selection and training our partners. But more and more also looking how we can leverage technology to create even more impact. So for example, from using drones and satellites to track our impact, to using smartphones to reach more people and tell them about how they can regreen their land.
And there's so much I'm looking forward to talking with you about today. But we've got a bit of a tradition on the podcast. I always like to find out more about the guest. And in your case, how you got your current role. So can I ask that you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, or the moment that would put you on the path that you're on today, and ultimately help you leverage technology to make a real positive change in the world?
Yeah, sure. So I studied civil engineering and later on hydrogeology. And as a civil engineer, and especially a Dutch civil engineer, you learn how to calculate and construct things like dikes and manage the water. So you're trained to look at the environment in a technical way. What is there now, how to work with it. And then I did a master's in hydrogeology. That's part of earth sciences. And you look at a landscape actually from a geological perspective. So how is that landscape actually shaped over the course of millions of years? How are those layers of sand and clay deposited by rivers which are long gone? And how that river, that as a civil engineer, you see as something that you should try to contain and manage, how that has been meandering there in that landscape for millions of years. And I think combining these technical and the more environmental, geological insights, they often gives you new perspectives and solutions. And most of the things that we are working on at Justdiggit are what we call nature-based solutions. So making use of the natural environment, often relatively simple things that farmers and pastoralists, people can do to make their land green and fertile again. And it all started when I did my master thesis. I spent 4 months in Kenya, and that's where I realized how much of an impact you can make on people's livelihoods in the environment. And that's kind of where it all started, my journey in Africa and how I ended up at Justdiggit.
Absolutely love that. And I'm conscious there will be a few people listening that are hearing about Justdiggit for the first time, which it is a non-profit organisation that works on regreening, thereby by restoring degraded land in Africa. And of course, greener land means more CO2 capture and ultimately a cooler planet. So can you tell me more about the story behind the company and some of the problems that you set out to solve with technology?
Yeah, of course. So indeed, Justdiggit is a non-profit. So it's our mission to regreen the planet, making dry and degraded areas green and fertile again, and thereby having a positive impact on people, on the environment, and ultimately on the global climate. So what we do as Justdiggit, together with our partners and millions of people and farmers in Africa, we're trying to restore these degraded landscapes. So making better use of rainwater, water which otherwise would have run off unutilized, causing floods downstream. We try to teach people how they can harvest that rainwater. So allowing it to soak up into the soil and allowing seeds in the earth to sprout. Or we show farmers the benefits that trees can have on their farmland and the benefits that those trees can bring to them and to their family and also to the ecosystem. And it's all about simple actions, simple interventions that people can do themselves and that have a direct benefit on them, but also have a positive impact on the environment, the ecosystem, and even on the microclimate. So if you bring back vegetation, it's cooling the atmosphere. So if you do it at a large enough scale, it's cooling a landscape. And as vegetation is drawing carbon out of the air, and if done at a large enough scale, it has a positive impact on the global climate. And I think the key is that although most of the interventions that we as Justdiggit are promoting are simple, it's pruning trees to digging these semicircular pits in the ground to trap rainwater, there's a lot of technology behind it. So there's a lot of technology, for example, that we use to determine what to do where, how to track our impact to reach more farmers and so on.
And we will have people listening all over the world, and they'll have their own challenges in their own regions. But just to set the scene about what we're talking about here and understanding the scale of the issue, can you tell me more about the problem in Africa right now that you're tackling?
Yeah, sure. It's quite severe. Globally, over 52% of the land which is used for agriculture is affected by soil degradation. So that's more than half. And in Africa alone, that's even more, over 65%. And that makes the land, but not only the land, it's the ecosystems, and especially the people living there, increasingly more vulnerable to climate change. And that is why it's so crucial to do something about it. And luckily we can. There are these relatively simple solutions to cope with climate change and actually to not only do something about degradation, but to reverse it. And many of them are low cost and low tech. And the key is to show people that it can be done and support them in how they can do it. And that is what we do as Justdiggit.
And just to bring to life some of what we're talking about here, can you walk me through how you're working with local farmers with this?
Yeah. So what we do is it's about inspiring people, educating them, and motivating them to take action. Ultimately, they themselves, the farmers, people living on the land, they have to take action themselves. That's the only way it can be done at scale. And luckily, we have a very strong network of media partners, all media partners that support us at no cost. And they help us to create awareness campaigns through billboards, radio, TV, using celebrities online. And by doing so, we show people that there are solutions. And it's actually cool to do something about land degradation and becoming a farmer or improving your environment and trying to create what we call a regreening movement. And we train and educate farmers together with our partners, showing them how, using these simple steps, simple interventions, they themselves can take action and regreen their environment. And maybe some examples. In Kenya, we work with our partners again and Maasai pastoral communities to dig what we call water bunds. So those are half-moon-shaped pits in the ground that capture rainwater. Rainwater, otherwise, it's often when it's raining, there's very heavy downpour. So intense rain showers, and most of the rainwater is just running away unutilized. And now we are retaining that water on the land. So it can soak into the soil. And seeds which are naturally there, or we bring those seeds there, they can sprout and bringing back grasses to those areas. And those grasses are used by the livestock of the communities and by wild. So simple things that can be done. And in Tanzania, we learn smallholder farmers what benefits trees can have on their farm and how it can benefit their crop yields. And some easy tricks how they can bring back those trees. And it's not by tree planting, but actually by pruning and protecting naturally sprouting trees and tree stumps. It's a much simpler and cost-effective way of bringing back trees in that environment. And that way it can be done at scale. It can be easily replicated by other people. And that's what we are up for. And that's what we're aiming for, to show people how they can do it themselves, as that's the only way that it can be done at scale.
And as this is a daily tech podcast, I've got to ask, can you tell me more about the role of technology or the role that technology that makes all this possible?
Yeah, definitely. So there's many ways that technology is helping or supporting us. So we use, for example, satellite data to do desk studies on which areas are degrading and identifying where our solutions can work. And that helps out us to identify which areas we should visit first on the ground, talk to communities and see in real life. But those new data that is becoming more and more readily available is helping us a lot in preparing and doing site selection studies, for example. Something else, we're working with partners to develop a machine learning algorithm that is able to detect, count, and measure trees on drone data. So we're flying out there with drones in some of our villages, mapping those areas every year. And by developing a machine learning algorithm that can detect the trees, it's helping us to answer questions like, well, are there more trees now compared to last year? So that's how we use technology to identify and track our impact. And actually, we're working on something new, which we see as our urgent, which we hope to use to reach many more people and to speed up this regreening process. So currently in our project, we use trainers and we show educational videos in many villages in Tanzania, for example. And those trainers and those videos learn people how they can regreen their land. And that's combined with other types of media to keep people motivated and encourage them. So we have billboards and a weekly radio show for farmers. And we have a free SMS text service where people can receive reminders and updates. And that's all working. So it's effective. We've brought back over 10 million trees in Tanzania alone. We also noticed that people started to practice these techniques, these interventions in villages where we don't have the trainers on the ground and where we've never visited with that video tour. So after seeing the billboards or subscribing to a text message or hearing a radio show, people start practicing it themselves. And that is awesome, but also triggered our thinking. Well, what if we can make use of the growing presence of smartphones and reach many, many more people and support them to regreen their land without the physical need of people on the ground, trainers on the ground? If we can pull that off, that could allow us to reach many more people at a fraction of the cost. So that is what we're working on now. It's a regreening platform, a smartphone app to kind of provide tailored regreening advice to farmers across Africa. And the idea is that the app will be engaging and fun to use, contain social elements, incentives, a bit like a combination of Duolingo and Strava, but then on regreening. So it's partly based on big data, things like soil conditions and rainfall predictions, which we can get from the location of people, so the GPS sensor in the smartphone. If we combine that with inputs that those farmers can provide themselves, like what crops are you growing, we can combine that and provide people a tailored advice on what could work on their land to regreen their environment. And then using simple step-by-step instructions in either video or animations, we can not only learn them how to do it, but also encourage them to go out and put it in practice. So, okay, we now know what trees are suitable for pruning. Let's go out and find one. Please take a photo of that tree before pruning. Take another photo after pruning. And we captured the moment where that tree is pruned. We know the GPS position. We know data of the farmer. But it can also help motivating those farmers to go back and maintain that tree. So you can send them a reminder. It's been 4 months since you pruned this tree. Shall we go out, take another photo, see how it's doing? It's only 50 meters that way. And that is what we're working on currently. And we're hoping to release a first version in Tanzania next year. And after that, roll it out and then use localized versions in many other countries in Africa to help those people regreen their environment too.
I love what you're doing here and how you're leveraging technology to make a big difference. And there's an old saying in every business is that you can't improve what you don't measure. And I think any business in any industry that's using technology or has a tech project or a project of any kind, there is this increasing pressure now to be able to report on the ROI of that project, the tangible results and the value that it's actually bringing. So how do you measure the impact that your technology is having in the region and indeed the planet too?
Yeah, excellent question. Currently, we use a combination of on-the-ground measurements, so surveys, reports from our trainers, and combining those with drone and satellite data to quantify our impact. So that ranges from counting actual trees to measuring how the greenness of each pixel in a satellite image changes over time. So that's one way. We still do that. We continue on doing so. And I think this app, that smartphone platform, will open up many more options. Then we know, for example, which farmer, where they're located, which courses he or she has completed, and hopefully map the impact themselves. So photos of the trees that they've pruned, photos or measurements of the water bunds that they dug. And then we can easily verify that using satellite data. If we know where people are located, where most of our users are, seeing if those areas are becoming more green on satellite data, for example, compared to neighboring villages. And I think the cool thing of this day and age is that it's incredible what technology is available nowadays and how easy it is to use. For example, we have a partnership with ESA, the European Space Agency, and Planet Labs, a satellite company. So we can now task satellites to take a very high resolution satellite image where you can really count, spot individual trees or these water bunds for a particular village. So I task a satellite right from my home, from my computer, and the next day the satellite has flown over the village and the image is there and ready for analysis. I think by combining the data from the field, by our trainers, by our partners, and by the farmers themselves, combining that with satellite data, drones, and using clever algorithms, there's so many opportunities.
Absolutely love what you're doing here. And I'm curious, though, what kind of feedback have you received from farmers? Was there any resistance initially, or what's the journey working and collaborating with them been like?
Yeah, it's magnificent. I think people love it as it is so simple. It's in their own span of control, and they're the ones receiving the benefit. So we're not pushing anyone to do it. We tell them, we show them how it can be done, and ultimately it's up to them to decide if they want to participate or not. But I think the key is that they understand and they see the benefits. And the numbers, they speak for themselves. In Tanzania alone, we've reached almost 1 million people, and that have brought back over 10 million trees to date, and that number is still rising. But it's not just those numbers. If you go to the villages and talk to the individual farmers, you hear the stories of, for example, these women and children that no longer have to walk for hours to fetch firewood and can therefore spend more time in school. Or this Maasai community where people are showing me the new roofs that people put on their houses through the increase of their income because of the intervention. So that really shows that it works and that there's a positive impact on the communities.
And what's your grand vision for Justdiggit? And are there any other ways that you're hoping to leverage technology in the future?
Yeah, I think the grand vision is around that mobile regreening platform.
Yeah.
So this smartphone app combined with all the other channels, billboards, SMS, social media, really supporting people to regreen their own land. And our ambition in that, or Earthshot as we like to call it, is to reach all 350 million farmers in sub-Saharan Africa by 2030. So it's quite a task ahead, but that is our mission.
Well, I wish you the best of luck on that journey. And a quick question on behalf of everyone listening here is that there is such a real pressure on each and every one of us to be in an almost state of continuous learning. So I've got to ask, where or how do you self-educate and keep up to speed with all the developments in your industry?
Yeah, well, as a tech enthusiast, I'm always keeping my eyes and ears open for what is new and trying it out and see if we can use it. So, for example, recently been playing around with this new AI chat tool, ChatGPT, and see if we can use that in our regreening app. And I think the key is it's not just in the newest technology or talking to other experts at international conferences. I learn a lot from people in our project areas. Aside pastoralists, they can tell you amazing stories about the different types of grasses and what those grass species can tell you about the soil, about the grazing pressure, and so on. And there's so much indigenous knowledge at smallholder farmers about practical ways to improve farming in harsh conditions. And I learn a lot from them. It's often a great inspiration for us to apply in other areas, or great input for a technical study using satellite data. So I think it's about combining new technologies with the indigenous knowledge that is so fascinating to me.
And for anyone listening anywhere in the world, I'd just love to dive a little bit deeper into this topic and learn how they too might be able to work with you, leverage technology to ensure we have greener land, which means more CO2 capture and ultimately a cooler planet. What is the best starting point for everything Justdiggit and contact your team, etc.?
Yeah, wonderful. Please reach out to us. You can visit our website, justdiggit.org. So Justdiggit with double G. Or follow us on any of the social media channels. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Yeah. And please reach out to me or us if you have any more questions.
Well, I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together, but you're taking this a step further. And I just love this mission of using technology to regreen Africa within the next 10 years and harnessing the growth and penetration of mobile technology across Africa. You've created this pilot app to educate local farmers on large-scale regreening aspects and also helping anybody with a mobile phone, an ambassador of regreening. And we take a look around and see everyone endlessly scrolling down their smartphone and being able to see people being able to make a difference with that smartphone that we all carry, and especially on your journey to reach 350 million farmers by 2030. Inspirational stuff. And I love the humble beginnings and your backstory too. I'd love to stay in touch with you, see how this journey goes, maybe get you back on next year. But more than anything, just thank you for sharing your story today.
More than welcome. I'd love to come back next year.
So this is just one example of how a company called Justdiggit are leveraging technology to make a real difference in the world. And I'm conscious we've got people listening in 165 countries with a variety of different challenges wherever you're listening. And I want to hear how you're leveraging technology or how your business is leveraging technology to try and make a real difference. I want to hear all stories from all over the world. That's why I record this every day. So please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. Let's keep this conversation going, share ideas, and see if we can collectively make a difference together. And on that cheesy note, just a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.